I married Laura right after college. I was with her as she went from an unknown associate to a well-respected judge in Chicago. 2 years later, she gave birth to Zach. Zach was a lot like Laura, quiet, reserved, and never that close to me. Until one morning, when I accidentally dropped the matching mugs that belonged to them. Laura frowned, annoyed. How can you not even do something so simple? Zach stared at the mess on the floor, a rare look of disappointment on his face. But that was a gift from Mr. Ethan to me and Mom. Suddenly, I just felt tired. That night, I asked for a divorce. Laura didn't even look up. Don't bother fighting me on this. You're not getting custody. She seemed certain I would back down for Zach's sake. I just nodded. Okay. I never wanted it anyway. Laura's head snapped up, a flash of shock on her face before it settled back into its usual blank expression. I won't stop you if you want a divorce. But are you sure you've thought this through? I carried my luggage to the car, glancing at Zach hiding behind the door. You're a judge, I said calmly. You wrote the divorce agreement. Even if I wanted to back out, I couldn't, right? I don't want any of our shared assets. Consider it child support for Zach. I'm taking the car. Laura suddenly grabbed my car door, her voice unsteady. Leo Porter, if you're divorcing me because I took Ethan's case, you don't have to. I tried to pull the door shut, but it wouldn't budge. She took a deep breath, flustered. I told you, I'm a judge with professional ethics. I have to be responsible for my cases. So even now, she still thought the problem was me. I met her gaze and challenged her. Laura, if you're really as righteous as you claim to be, why did you wait until I found out to tell me? And why did you accuse me of snooping in your study after I did? I had just gone in to clean, same as always, and saw it by accident. For years, the case files she left scattered on her desk were never a secret. But that time, she flew into a rage, yelling at me for not respecting her. Seeing her silent, I pressed on. Ask yourself, Laura, do you really not have a single selfish motive in all of this? She was stunned for a moment, then quickly recovered. I wasn't feeling well that day, and my attitude toward you was poor, but I apologized later. Apologized? That day, Laura had screamed at me, and my son, Zach, stood at the doorway, watching everything in the study with a cold expression. Dad, you don't respect Mom's privacy. Mr. Ethan would never do that. The next morning, before she left with Zach, she tossed me a single sentence. I'll be home early tonight. That was her so-called apology. And the breakfast I had made for them sat untouched on the pristine dining table. Neither of them had taken a single bite. Seeing the lack of understanding on her face, I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. For the past 2 years, I'm the one who's dropped Zach off and picked him up from school every single day. You've never been to a single parent-teacher event, let alone any of his extracurriculars. So tell me, Laura, why are you so eager to do the school run every day now? The yard fell completely silent. I had loved Laura, and Zach was once my entire world. But people get tired. Hearts can die. The great Judge Laura, so sharp and eloquent in the courtroom, couldn't say a single word in her defense. Leo, these are just trivial matters. I closed my eyes, overcome by an indescribable exhaustion. They're all just tiny, trivial things like sesame seeds. But when the whole floor is covered in them, you'd go crazy trying to pick them all up. I had choked down this undercooked meal for years. Now I was finally ready to spit it out. As the car slowly pulled out of the driveway, Zach didn't even say Dad. And I didn't need to look back at him. Not even after I'd given up the chance to study abroad to take care of him, after I'd spent whole nights holding him to get him to sleep, completely ignoring my own career hitting a wall. Laura and I were married for 8 years. Zach came into our lives 6 years ago. Even I found it hard to believe that our picture-perfect family of 3 had come to this. It all started 6 months ago with a case Laura took on. The client was her college first love, Ethan. Back then, Laura was the brilliant, aloof scholarship kid at the law school, and Ethan was the big man on campus from the business school who chased her relentlessly. They walked side by side down the tree-lined paths of campus, living out the kind of love story everyone envies when they're young. And the deep love I kept buried in my heart felt like a joke. Later, I heard Ethan's parents disapproved of Laura's background and caused a huge scene at the law school. I guess some things are just too good to last. They broke up. At the time, I was spending a lot of time in the art studio to deal with my own gloom, and one day I happened to see Laura sitting in the classroom next door. She said she really liked my paintings. I was ecstatic, even if she only liked my art. Life moved forward, and I cherished every moment I got to spend alone with her. But I never dared to show a hint of my feelings, afraid she'd avoid me if she knew. I loved her cautiously, my crush making me a coward. I had the guts to drink and talk with her, even trying to set her up with other guys so she would forget Ethan sooner. But I never had the guts to tell her I liked her. Until our senior year, when I was coming back to campus alone and found her in an alley, being attacked in retaliation for a case. The blood on her back had soaked through the simple white dress she always wore. That night in the hospital was long. I leaned close to her ear and whispered everything, telling her carefully how much I liked her. She said yes. We got together and we walked down the aisle. But I never expected that 8 years later, Ethan would reappear in our lives. What I expected even less was that he would become my son Zach's teacher. Laura knew about this before I did. The moment Ethan saw Zach, he immediately looked up his student file. When Laura got the call, the man's voice on the other end was choked with emotion. No wonder he looked so familiar. He's the son of an old friend. That was why Laura had insisted on handling the school run ever since Zach started the semester. It wasn't out of guilt for neglecting her child, it was because she wanted to see that person every day. I wouldn't have even known if Zach hadn't let it slip. I was worried every day that the two of them would be hungry without breakfast, that eating fast food all the time was unhealthy. Turns out, they were rushing off to another man's house to eat with him every morning. Once upon a time, I had dreamed of a life with the three of us, through all 4 seasons. But the present was no longer the future I had imagined. I got a new phone and bought a plane ticket to France. That weekend, a painter I greatly admire was having an exhibition there. For the sake of my wife and son, I hadn't taken a single trip by myself since we got married. Trips with the 3 of us usually left me even more exhausted, mentally and physically. I was in charge of planning every detail of the itinerary, and they were only in charge of complaining. The schedule is so packed. Going on a trip with you is more tiring than my job. What's so great about a temple? You actually believe in that lovelock nonsense? I wanted to go to the botanical gardens. Why didn't Dad plan for that? Dad won't let me eat anything. I hate Dad the most. Looking back, the answers were all in the details. I spent nearly 2 months on that trip, traveling almost all over France. The evening breeze on the Seine, the poetry of the Tuileries garden, the gentle dusk over Montmartre, the brilliant history held within the Louvre. On bustling street corners, the sound of a violin scattered on the wind, like a scene from a movie, transitioning slowly and gracefully. Before, my whole world revolved around my wife and son. Now, the mountains were just mountains and the sea was just the sea. When I got back to the hotel, I saw one of my own paintings. A crowd had gathered in front of it, praising it with the most romantic language. I looked at the vibrant, alive version of myself in the mirror and suddenly felt detached from my failed marriage. Be like a mountain. I must be like a mountain, covered in fragrant grasses and flowers, but also made of the hardest stone. For myself, I will do what I can and respect what I cannot. As soon as the plane landed, my old phone was flooded with missed calls and messages from Laura. Answer the phone. Leo, what the hell is your problem? Come home and apologize right now, and I can still forgive you. Where did you put the gray silk scarf I wore to court last time? Zach has a fever. What medicine do you usually give him? Leo, what do you mean by not answering your phone? Even if we're divorced, Zach is still your son. You're still legally his father. The doctor said Zach's cough has been hard to treat since he was little. What did you do to manage it? Leo, I'm going crazy. Where are you? After getting home, I sent a text. The herbal remedy. I remember the first time I made it for Zach, he was still so obedient. He took it spoonful by spoonful, and his coughing slowly subsided. The last time I made it for him, he scowled and swatted the bowl out of my hand. Mr. Ethan said this is all just folk medicine. You're so dumb, Dad. The scalding liquid splashed onto my hand, but I just told myself he was a kid and didn't know any better. I brought out another bowl, soothing him through the pain. Zach, you have to trust Dad. Drink this and you'll stop coughing. But he refused, turning and running back to his room. I'm not drinking that garbage. I just stared at his back. Zach, acting like this, was the spitting image of Laura lately when she came home from work events. When I'd bring her the hangover soup I had kept warm for hours, she would push my hand away coldly. I don't drink this stuff. I scrolled up through our chat history. It was a sea of solid green message bubbles from my side. Zach's first day of kindergarten. Do you have time to drop him off with me? I bought some really fresh shrimp at the market today. Want to come home for dinner? Still in a meeting? I can bring you something to eat. No matter how busy you are with work, you need to rest. Don't forget to take the vitamins on the table. In the last 2 years, Laura had sent me fewer messages than she had in the last 2 months. Let alone messages she initiated. There were barely any. Not a minute after I sent the text, Laura's call came through. Her voice was hoarse, like she hadn't slept well in a long time. Leo, you finally answered. I'm juggling work and taking care of Zach. You need to come back and help. I put down my paintbrush, trying to keep my voice calm. Laura, I'm busy too. We're divorced. If you need a nanny, you can hire one. I have my own things to do. What could you possibly be busy with besides me and Zach? Don't you dare tell me you're working. Laura cut me off, her voice edged with impatience. I fought back my anger, speaking each word clearly. What I'm busy with is my business and none of yours. And Laura, you're a judge. You of all people should understand what the word divorce means, right? People get divorced because they can't stand each other anymore. They get divorced because they hope to never see each other again. So stop bothering me. It's really annoying. I hung up and blocked her number. But I never expected Laura to be so persistent, calling me from one new number after another. Once, when I picked up, I heard Zach's reluctant voice. Dad, when are you coming back? I was in the middle of signing a contract and answered without thinking. Mom and Dad are divorced. I'm not coming back. If you need something, you can ask your mom first. You're not coming back at all? Zach's voice was suddenly full of surprise. Then can Mr. Ethan be my dad? The phone was suddenly snatched away, and I heard Laura's panicked voice. He's just a kid, he doesn't know what he's saying. Don't take it to heart. Leo, she said my name softly. Zach is our child. Do you really have to hold on to all this? I smirked, finding it ridiculously funny. Laura, that's because I'm the one who was forced to swallow all the pain, not you. Every time I took the clothes from her hands and smelled another man's cologne on them, I was the one who endured it. Every time I heard the child I raised as my own complain about me again and again because someone else was whispering in his ear, I was still the one who endured it. The mugs I accidentally broke that day were a gift from Ethan. It was a set of 3. The last one was on his desk at work. I don't believe for a second that Laura didn't understand what Ethan meant by giving them those mugs. So when both of them turned on me at the same time, all my tolerance became meaningless. The voice on the other end paused for 3 seconds. Ethan, his case is almost over. I curled my lip into a sneer. What? Should I pop a bottle of champagne for him? Or should I be expecting a wedding invitation? Once the case was over, other things could begin. Leo, how long are you going to keep this up? Laura's tone was full of exasperation, as if she were scolding me for being immature. I hung up without a second thought and blocked the new number. The painting on my easel just needed a few finishing touches. Ben showed up while I was making dinner. He's my agent and my best friend since childhood. He walked in with a bottle of champagne to celebrate my escape from hell. Seriously, a genius painter like you trading his paintbrushes for an apron for that which even Honey shakes his head at it. Years ago, there was a young painter named Porter who shot to fame and then vanished into silence. That was me.
Léo Porter, Porter.
I lay down on the sofa, propping my head up with a pillow. Who's Honey? A dog I just adopted. My point is, no male on this planet would approve of what you did. The air was quiet. He cleared his throat and suddenly asked, Are you still dealing with that ungrateful little brat school situation? That private school isn't just about money. The deal was you donate 2 paintings. Zach was starting first grade in the fall, and Laura and I had put a lot of effort into his schooling. Laura had gotten where she was through education, so she was even more focused on Zach's schooling than most parents. She had her heart set on this private school early on. Laura had pulled every string she could but couldn't get him a spot. I couldn't bear to see her stressing about Zach on top of her demanding job. So, I had Ben reach out to the headmaster under the pretext of donating art and requested a spot for Zach. It worked perfectly. The headmaster shook Ben's hand, overjoyed, promising that if he could get my paintings, he'd take 10 Zachs, let alone 1. Zach's admission was settled just like that. But I didn't want Laura to know, so I had the headmaster contact a teacher Laura had previously asked for help. Because of that one spot, Laura was praised to the skies at the courthouse. Everyone who saw her complimented Judge Laura on her amazing connections. And Zach became the envy of every parent and child at his preschool. But now, what did you tell them at the time? Ben was scrolling casually through his phone. I said I'd do my best. A shark is a shark. He promised 8/10 of what he could deliver but made them believe in 12. Those 2 paintings, I sold them for you. I donated the auction proceeds to a charity for underprivileged schools. Bottom line, I wasn't going to let you use them to pave the way for that toxic pair. After all, Zach was a child I had poured my heart and soul into. I still cared about his future, but I didn't have any suitable paintings for the school anymore. Like any stay-at-home husband, I was practically on call 24/7 to take care of them. In the end, I barely even had a chance to pick up a paintbrush. Thank God, I could finally be myself again. At 4 a.m., a harsh ringtone shattered the silence. It was an unknown number. I answered, trying to stay lucid. Hello, who is this? Sir, it's Laura's assistant. Laura was drinking with a client until after 3. I was about to take her home, but she said her stomach hurts too much to move. We're at City General Hospital now. Sir, would you be able to come over? The assistant recited the lines stiffly, stumbling a little in the middle with no conviction at all. Honestly, there's a reason some people stay assistants for so long. I resisted the urge to throw my phone and lowered my voice. As far as I know, I'm not Laura's emergency contact. What? It was about 6 months ago, I think. Laura got into a minor car accident on her way to the courthouse. When I rushed to the hospital, a nurse led me to her room. Seeing my panicked expression, she kindly reassured me, Mr. Ethan, your wife is fine. She was just unconscious when she was brought in, so we contacted you. I stopped in my tracks, and I vaguely heard my own voice tremble. Where did you find his number? Laura's phone had a passcode. She refused to use a fingerprint or facial recognition, saying it wasn't secure. The nurse smiled, as if she'd seen it all before. From her emergency contacts, of course. The number you can call without unlocking the phone. The first person to be contacted in a crisis. On Laura's phone, it was Ethan. And I found out because one of her colleagues called me. That was the first time I ever felt something called disappointment toward Laura. But how could someone who disappoints you only do it once? I lay back down in bed. Hearing the shuffling sounds on the other end only confirmed my suspicion that a second person was listening. The fact that you could find my number means even you know Laura's phone password. But I don't. That proves I'm not someone she trusts. So you'd better find someone else. Just as I was about to hang up, Laura finally dropped the act. She quickly grabbed the phone, her voice full of hurt. Leo, I drank too much again and I don't feel well. I suddenly remembered the last hangover soup I ever made for her. She said she didn't drink that stuff anymore. And Zach, his cough keeps coming back. I had the nanny make that herbal remedy, but he won't drink it. Laura, I couldn't suppress the anger inside me and cut her off. You're in a hospital. There are doctors there. Calling me is useless, you're just waking me up. If your son won't drink it, you need to teach him to get used to it, because I'm never coming back to make it for him again. Do you understand? I don't care what you're thinking right now, but let me tell you something. I used to do those things because I wanted to, not because I had to. Divorcing you was a carefully considered decision. There is absolutely no chance of me taking it back. Do you get it, Laura? There was dead silence on the other end. Just as I was about to hang up, Laura tried one last time. She lowered her voice, a mix of confusion and resentment. Leo, after all these years together, can't you just forgive me this one time? I laughed, which somehow calmed me down. Laura, forgiving someone isn't a one-time thing. It means I have to forgive you every single time I remember what you did. If Laura had just been mature and let us part ways amicably, I would have respected her for having some dignity. But her constant clinging, her fake affection, and her attempts to paint herself as the good guy in the end were just pathetic. The news of our divorce gradually spread. A number of mutual friends came to talk to me. Some said I had been with her through it all, and just when she finally had everything, I was letting someone else walk in and take it. Others said Laura still had feelings for me otherwise. Why would she be trying so hard to get me back? Just then, a message from an unknown number appeared on my phone. It was a picture. In the dim light, two people on a bed had their fingers intertwined, holding hands tightly. Even without the ring I had spent so long picking out, I would have recognized those well-manicured hands. And the half-visible faces of Ethan and Laura. Laura was asleep, Ethan was smiling. I casually posted the picture to my social feed. Caption: see, once the case is over, they can sleep together in the open. I didn't block anyone from seeing that post. Less than 3 minutes later, another text came from the unknown number. Leo, are you insane? Delete that right now. Delete it? You had the guts to send it, but you're afraid of me sharing it? If there's anyone in this city who hasn't seen this picture by tomorrow, it'll be a failure on my part as the ex-husband. Besides, Ethan wasn't even on my friends list. So how did he see my post? Laura hadn't contacted me, which meant Ethan knew her password and had been scrolling through her feed. I turned off my phone, a spark of inspiration hitting me. I went to my art studio in the countryside and stayed there for 3 whole months. One of the paintings sold for a 7-figure price to a collector abroad. Ben took 2 other sketches with him. They were still for that school. I frowned slightly. What are you doing? He leaned on the windowsill, cupping his face in his hands. You're a single widower and I'm a single bachelor. Someone's got to take care of us when we're old. So I'm sponsoring a girl. Naturally, I want to give her the best education and have her look after us. She's definitely better than your biological kid. Widower? I couldn't even argue with that. As for the 2 sketches, it didn't really matter. Some people care more about who painted the picture than the picture itself. But I didn't know that for me. 3 months had flown by in an instant. For Laura and Ethan, every day was an eternity. Everyone knew Laura had divorced her husband of 8 years for her first love. And as if that wasn't dramatic enough, people added their own embellishments to the story. They said Laura had planned it all along, just waiting for Ethan's case to be resolved, so she could dump her original husband. Even her own son couldn't wait to call another man dad. This wasn't a drunken mistake, as they tried to explain, but a premeditated affair. And I, the devoted husband she left behind, became the sole victim. Laura's career was more or less ruined. No male clients wanted to hire her. And female clients, worried about their own families, didn't want to get involved in the drama. There are a million lawyers out there. If one doesn't work, you just find another. Ethan had it even worse. He lost his job. No parent wanted to leave their child in the care of a homewrecker. Someone in the parents' group chat openly ranted, I don't care if my kid's grades are bad, but if his character is rotten, I'll have nowhere to cry. Exactly. If my kid turned out like that, I'd find an open casket for him myself. He's a teacher, a role model, but he has no morals. How can we trust him? Fire him. Yeah. They'll let any creep be a teacher these days. Us millennials might not like to get involved, but we're not dead. I thought that would be the end of it. But Ethan made the fatal mistake of trying to sling mud back at me. He wrote a long, dramatic post about his love story with Laura and published it on social media. He named me specifically, calling me the homewrecker. He claimed I took advantage of him being abroad to create misunderstandings that broke him and Laura up, and that I had swooped in to become Mr. Laura. The rumors spread like wildfire, and some extreme internet users started digging up my personal information. Even Ben called to warn me that if my identity was exposed, the consequences could be serious. It's one thing for Leo Porter to be labeled the other man, but Porter, the artist, can't be. I had always wondered why Ethan's family, who believed so strongly in elite education that they gritted their teeth to send him abroad to study, would be content with him being a preschool teacher. Now I knew. The world is full of people you just can't help. I gave Laura one chance to step up and clear the air. She said, "Leo, I can't lose my career, and Zach can't have a mother with a ruined reputation." So Zach could have a father with a ruined reputation? I almost forgot. He'd already chosen a replacement dad for himself. So I was the one who had to take the fall as the homewrecker. And I guess I had already anticipated her answer, so I wasn't too surprised. I just let out a soft sigh. A sigh for misplaced devotion. A sigh for the unpredictability of life. Ben threw a pile of photos at me and stared at me for a long time. "Why are you crying?" "Crying?" I raised a hand to my face. My fingertips were damp. "I guess I just feel sorry for the pathetic fool I used to be." Ben clapped me on the shoulder. "Stop arguing with them. Why can't you just sit down calmly and slap them both across the face? Here, this is your weapon from your brother." He sent me a bunch of photos of Laura and Ethan together, eating and staying over at his place before we were even divorced. There was also a 57-page PDF file, a timeline of my relationship with Laura from dating to marriage. It included interviews with all our old classmates and friends, a precision strike against Ethan's sob story. That afternoon, the trending topics online were completely reshuffled. Adults love to sacrifice themselves for the greater good. They bring it on themselves. When you were naming the man you fought tooth and nail to protect, were you thinking of your first love or me waiting outside the operating room? Rot in hell, you cheaters. I'd curse the world. I'd curse God. I'd defile my ancestors and look down on everyone. But I wouldn't dare slap a scumbag. The crappier the car, the more spare tires it has. What a load of crap about finding his first love again. Which law firm? Which preschool? You're not telling us the important stuff, so how are we supposed to avoid them? How easy is it to destroy someone's hard work? Experts work for a year to improve marriage and birth rates, and all it takes is one little cheating story. Wishing this guy all the best on his own. Hope he gets his old swagger back. The next time I saw Laura, it was outside that private elementary school. She looked haggard, not even bothering with her usual polished makeup. Her eyes were bloodshot. Her dress wasn't even ironed, it was wrinkled and bunched up on her. Ben had come down with a fever, so he asked me to take the little girl he was sponsoring, Violet, to school. Zach stared nervously at the little girl whose hand I was holding, his eyes filled with hostility. "Mom, why is Dad holding her hand? Didn't you say Dad would always be my dad? She's the poorest kid in class. She doesn't even have a mom or dad. Didn't Uncle Ethan say only little princesses and princes can go to this school? Why is she here?" Laura didn't say anything, just looked at me. I knelt down and straightened Violet's clothes. "Violet, why don't you head inside for class? I'll be here to pick you up tonight." Before I could finish, several figures hurried out of the school gate. "Mr. Porter, Mr. Porter, I'm so glad to finally meet you." It was the headmaster. They had heard I was coming today and had been waiting at the gate. It was as if something suddenly clicked for Laura. Her eyes filled with utter disbelief. "The painter they were talking about is you? Zach is still on the wait list because you suddenly went back on your word?" I shrugged and denied it. I didn't go back on my word. I just changed who it was for. It was for the classmate Zach looked down on the most. "Dad, I don't even have a school to go to. Why are you helping someone else instead of me? You have to tell them to let me in. I'll still call you my dad." I looked at Zach quietly. He was looking more and more like Laura. His personality, too. He thought he could summon me and dismiss me at will. And he'd gotten used to it. He glared at me, his eyes filled with a blatant threat. I took Violet's hand, my face blank. "You don't have to." Laura's face changed drastically, and she blocked my path. "He's just a child. How can you say that to him?" I laughed. Just a child. A 6-year-old child who, in order to go out with his mom and his favorite teacher, put sleeping pills in his own father's milk. If he hadn't grabbed the effervescent tablets by mistake, I never would have found out. He was so defiant then. I want Mr. Ethan and Mom to take me out to play. I don't want Dad to come. I slapped him hard across the face. It was the first time I had ever hit him, and it hurt me more than if I had hit myself. From that day on, he completely distanced himself from me. The rare times I heard laughter from his room, it was always when he was on the phone with his Mr. Ethan. More than once, when I brought him his milk, I heard him wishing to the Santa Claus toy I'd given him, "Please let Mr. Ethan be my dad." I hate my dad now so much. Now his wish had come true, and somehow it was my fault. The headmaster looked at me awkwardly. "If this is your child, we can also—" "That won't be necessary." I led Violet through the school gates, not forgetting to remind the security guard, "Don't let any unauthorized people in." Behind me, all I could hear was the sound of Zach wailing. But I thought to myself, I can't let it bother me anymore. Life moved forward one day at a time. Now, my life is more focused on my art. I often travel to clear my head and find inspiration. The vastness of 3.7 million square miles of land, the surge of 1.2 million square miles of sea, the turning of the seasons across heaven and earth, a magnificent symphony played by ice and fire. I followed explorers over mountains and through valleys, deep into the heart of the forest. I rode the wind and waves, chasing starlight into the deep blue. I plunged back into the world of mortals until I could see this poetic earth clearly. I used to think that mountains and seas were impassable, that the stars were unreachable. But I never imagined that the sea has boats to cross it, and the mountains have paths to climb. The mountains and seas can all be overcome. What's hard to overcome is the human heart. Now, the rest of my life is calm. The past is done. Laura and her son could no longer affect me. Ben wanted to organize an exhibition for me, saying it was a way to give back to the fans who had waited for me for so many years. I agreed. Laura came with Zach. They stood in the crowded room, and Zach was holding a small cake. He held the box carefully, afraid someone would bump into it. When he was just a few feet away, Zach shouted to me, his voice filled with a kind of innocent cheerfulness, "Dad, I made this cake myself. Mom and I came to celebrate with you." As if I hadn't heard a thing, I took Violet's hand and walked up to the podium. In this exhibition, a small section was dedicated to Violet's drawings. Her brushstrokes were childish, but incredibly interesting. A child's boundless imagination is the most precious thing. I praised her creativity and acknowledged her talent and hard work. Laura's lips were pressed into a thin line, an emotion on her face I couldn't decipher. Zach, however, was already crying, his red-rimmed eyes glaring at the people on stage. As I passed by Laura and her son, Zach grabbed my hand tightly. He sobbed his accusations at me, utterly heartbroken. "Dad, I'm your real son. Why didn't you let me on stage? Why don't you teach me how to paint? Why don't you praise me?" I used some force trying to pull my hand away. Laura grew anxious and helped Zach hold onto my arm. "Don't be like this. Zach is your son. He needs you to comfort him right now." "My son? Even if he is, it doesn't stop him from being an ungrateful brat. There was a time I would have sacrificed everything for this child. My career, my freedom, even myself. The first time he learned to say dad, my eyes welled up. Every time he got a scrape or a bump, my heart ached beyond words. If he had asked for the stars in the sky, I would have wished I could grow wings and get them for him. But loving parents must plan for their child's future. I set many rules for him, hoping he would develop good habits. Kids will be kids, but Zach used to take my words to heart. Until Ethan appeared in his life, until he started wishing Ethan could take my place. He changed completely. On a scorching summer day, the street cleaners were drenched in sweat. Zach casually tossed his water bottle on the ground, as if he didn't see the trash can just a few feet away. I put on a stern face and told him to pick it up. "I'm not picking it up. Those beggars will fight over it anyway." "Who said they're beggars? They're people just like us, earning a living with their own two hands." Zach shoved me hard, his voice full of annoyance. "No, they're not. Mr. Ethan said as long as Mom has money, I'm different from the other kids. Dad is always so pathetic and poor. I don't want you to be my dad. In that moment, I realized that I had raised him for 6 years, disciplined him for 6 years, and it couldn't compare to 6 months of Ethan letting him do whatever he wanted. I shot them a cold glance. Sorry, I don't have time. If you don't let go, I'm calling the police. They were escorted out of the exhibition hall. It suddenly started raining outside. Zach took off his jacket and covered the cake box with it. He kept looking up at me with a pitiful expression. I walked past without a second glance, a faint smile still on my face. Laura took a couple of steps forward to call out to me, opened her mouth, but couldn't get a single word out, her lips trembling. I had just returned to the country when I heard that Laura had been pushed down the stairs by Ethan and taken to the hospital. My phone was full of missed calls from her mother. She was a very simple farmer. When we got married, she gave me almost all of her life savings. Her hands trembled as she handed me the money in a cloth bag. I don't really have anything nice to give you. I just hope my daughter will treat you well. Out of a strange sense of guilt toward her, I went to the hospital. Just as he despised me, Zach also hated his grandmother. But now, he could only cling to the old woman's leg, sobbing uncontrollably. When he saw me, he cried even harder. I found the doctor to get a general idea of the situation. Laura's injuries weren't serious, but she seemed completely uncooperative with the treatment. When I walked into her room, I saw a flicker of light in her eyes. She said with certainty, "Leo, I knew you wouldn't leave me to fend for myself." I frowned slightly, suppressing my irritation. "Laura, do you think you seem particularly devoted right now?" Laura was taken aback, then looked at me with a sincere expression. "No, Leo, with Ethan, it was really just about my pride. That day was your birthday. I was decorating the house to surprise you, but I didn't expect Ethan to show up. We got into an argument. I let out a bitter laugh and looked at her mockingly. I haven't celebrated my birthday in 6 years. Ever since we had a child, I became the least important person in the family. What's a birthday? Laura, you don't like me. You just think it's a shame to have lost me." The person on the hospital bed flinched and almost instinctively lowered her gaze. I ignored her and continued to expose her thoughts. "If you like strawberries, you'll buy them without a second thought. You don't like bananas as much, but you'll still buy them because they're good for digestion. Liking someone is just liking them. You don't weigh the pros and cons." At first, she just wasn't used to being without my meticulous care. Later, she realized I might be more capable than Ethan. Or maybe that little bit of pride she was holding onto was satisfied the moment Ethan came back to her. Laura was like someone collecting seashells on the beach. When she found one she thought was better, she threw away the one she was holding without hesitation. When she realized the new one wasn't as good as the old one, she wanted to pick the old one back up. But we are people, not seashells. At the end of the day, you still care about Ethan. I already told you I don't like him anymore. Can we just let this go? Why do you keep bringing up the past? Oh, she's asking me why I keep bringing up the past. I looked at her steadily, speaking each word with emphasis. That's because the problem was never properly resolved. You selfishly asked me to be generous, and you played dumb to dismiss my pain. Laura, you don't need me and only me. You just think I'll soften up and waver, so you're trying to disgust me like this. Laura tried to grab me, but the pain from her injuries caused her to fall pathetically off the bed. This was the second time I had seen her cry. The first was the day she and Ethan broke up. Back then, I held my heart in my hands and tried to piece hers back together, terrified she wouldn't recover. Seeing her cry again now, I felt nothing at all. She pleaded with me through her tears. "Leo, give me one more chance. We have a child, we had a happy home. Please don't give up on me and our son so easily. Okay?" "No, not okay at all. Save yourself some dignity, Laura." Behind me, I heard cries of agony and the sound of fists hitting the floor. I closed the door decisively. There was no turning back. Bringing an umbrella after the rain has stopped is just a burden. The next time I heard about Laura, she had already taken Zach and moved back to her hometown. I would send child support to her every month. I didn't neglect a single one of my duties. I just wouldn't love him the way I used to. Laura would often send me pictures of Zach's report cards. He was always first in his class. One day I got a call from Zach. He asked, "Dad, if I get first place lots and lots of times, will you come back?" 5-year-old Violet was putting clothes she'd outgrown into a bag to donate to people in need. I reminded her, "Sweetie, can you wait for Daddy to help you pack those up?" There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line, followed by Laura's hesitant voice. "Leo, you're married again?" Only then did I remember I hadn't hung up the phone. "Yeah, our kid is already 5. Was there anything else you needed?" The call was abruptly disconnected. I knew that they would never bother me again. Violet is Ben's daughter, and I'm her godfather. But I didn't feel the need to explain. From then on, a bird and a fish walk different paths. Our worlds will never cross again. A little while later, Ben came back with the application materials for my master's program abroad. His eyes were red, and he gave me a shove, annoyed. "You're going back to school at your age? Isn't helping me raise my kid good enough?" I smiled and hugged him. He's my favorite professor, and this is the first time he's accepting graduate students in 10 years. You should be congratulating me. Without Ben's support all these years, life would have been impossibly hard. His unwavering belief in me put a filter on everything, turning a not-so-great me into someone pretty decent. Okay. Here's to our Leo Porter, no longer a broken piece, but free to roam the world. To that, I nodded firmly. The road ahead is sure to be lined with one blossoming tree after another. I will finally stand tall on my own mountain peak after the spring rains have passed.